When I arrived to Halifax, the first thing was the air. Like, I don't think many people have that type of sensation or feelings or thoughts when they arrive to Halifax, but I certainly did. It probably speaks of my background a little bit because, you know, I'm Crimean. I come from Crimea, a town called Simferopol, and yeah, like every now and then, I still remember. It's just there were these days when you would go out of the house and you would catch this whiff, like this sea breeze. And if you look at the map, Simferopol is not actually at the coastline, but in the center of a peninsula, and we don't have like a sea air all day every day, but every now and then it happens, and when it hits you, it's like, oh Jesus, like that feeling is, I don't know, top 10 feelings of all time. And yeah, like I remember that feeling, and I thought I would relive it in another place, you know, if I go to Halifax and go to the ocean and sit right next to it. You could say that I'm into air, like talking about things that are taken for granted. How about air? Like, we got Jeff Bezos and other quadrillionaires shooting themselves into space just to, you know, come back and go like, oh, air is pretty sweet here. Like, it's nice here. This is the spot, guys. And it's funny that it takes a person, you know, go out of the stratosphere of our planet, or, you know, go underwater into the ocean to appreciate such basic thing. The oxygen. Like, you don't need to be a chemist, you know, to know how essential oxygen is to your life. Well, we don't think about it. We don't really care. Because you only know you love her when you let her go. Such a hope. Not that there's bad air somewhere. Like, everywhere you go, air is pretty much the same. Like, wherever you are, it's air, okay? It definitely shouldn't be the factor for choosing where you want to live. But I don't know. I just wanted to go and check it out for myself, you know. Because Canada is huge, it's humongous. It's so big, and actually, like, population-wise, it's not as big. It's the same amount as Ukraine, but if you go by size, it's way bigger. And, you know, I want to explore and discover all its might and uniqueness by traveling around and seeing different provinces, different cities and stuff like that. I had only been to Vancouver, British Columbia, and, you know, then I went to Montreal, and damn, it's been a year already. What? It's been a year since I closed the door to my house. And imagine that. Imagine I walked out and I closed the door and I never came back. It used to be my door. You know, everybody has the door, like the door to their house. It's like your door, like you know it. Mine happens to be dark blue, and it has this weird Soviet Union design, and I know every crack in the surface and scratchings from cats and dogs that we had, and I know every little detail of that door. That's my door. And in the morning, or afternoon or evening, I would go out and I would go to school or work or university and whatnot, and then I would come back home and I would go out and come back, and I would go in and out like that. I would close it and open it, close it and open it. For years I've been doing that, and then one day I just closed it and that was it. So it's been a year. Okay, so you'd think that that's enough time for a person to adapt and get used to foreign environment. Not for this guy. I don't know. Yeah, it's just, well, granted, I definitely feel a year in that I'm more comfortable. You know, I know where to go and what's what, but there's still, you know, no sense of like rootedness. You know what I mean? It's a strange feeling. But maybe I'm just, you know, I'm looking for wrong things. Maybe I'm chasing the wrong dragon, and that's not what I should be concerned with. Because maybe I'm just that type of plant. I don't know. I look at others and how they get accustomed to, but maybe I'm just a different type of plant. And after being plucked out of my pot, out of my soil, and then being replanted somewhere else, you know, it takes time for me. Maybe it takes a little longer to spread the roots. And maybe that's the problem. But a funny thing is, it's not optional whether it's to spread roots or not. Like, you have to do it. And it's interesting because if you don't spread the roots, you can't blossom. If you don't root yourself, you can't grow. My French is better though. I mean, it's still far from any good, but I'm working. I mean, I beat myself up daily for not putting more effort into learning it, because, you know, I'm a linguist. I'm an English teacher. I know how this works. I should be the one who gets ahead of this thing, but I don't know. It's still a struggle. I still suck at French, and it's tough, you know, putting time in, putting hours in, putting work in. It takes commitment and dedication, and I've been struggling with that. But no excuses. Hey, no excuses. It's all good. It's all good. It is what it is. But when I was in Halifax in one of the coffee shops, I overheard somebody speaking French, you know, next table. And there was just like a couple francophones just chirping something in French, and I felt, you know, some sort of affinity for them because, you know, I traveled all this way and I'm in this Anglophone environment, and then I hear French speech and it just brings me back for a second, and I was like, oh, all right. It wasn't overwhelming as here, like when I'm in Montreal somewhere, you know, in Rosemont area, and I hear two Quebecers speak to each other, and I'm just like, I can't even follow. Like, sometimes they get so fast and complex, I don't even know what they're talking about. But there, it was, you know, it seemed fitting. It seemed perfect, and I appreciated that. As I was coming to Halifax, I didn't have like a real plan. There was no agenda or anything like that. It was just a trip to explore. I didn't have any friends or somebody to visit there. The only contact I had was this Ukrainian girl that I found in a Telegram group, like for Ukrainian immigration, Nova Scotia, blah blah something. And yeah, she just posted something about organizing a board game party, and I saw it and I was like, oh shit, like people in Halifax are having fun. They play board games and stuff like that. They meet up for some jolly old time. But I just, you know, probably they do it here. I just don't know. I don't know. And I texted her saying like, oh, I wish I could attend your event, your little get together, but I'm quite far. So hopefully when I move, I get to play Mafia and other board games with you guys. That would be super cool, but not at the moment. And you know, we chatted a bit and it was all good, but that was a long time before I decided to go to Halifax. And I didn't really want to contact her when I came. Like it crossed my mind, but I wasn't like I gotta do it. It's because, you know, we were just two strangers on the net, and our little exchange was such a long time ago, and I don't know if there was any point, you know, even mentioning it. But eventually I just hit her up, and she was very opening to meeting me and showing me around. And mind you, I found out that she spent, at that time, she's been in Canada for a year, and so it's just we were both similar in our immigrant experience, just that I spent my year in Quebec, whereas it was, yeah, in Nova Scotia for her. And we were like on a parallel trajectories in terms of our immigration process and life. I tried to give her a hug by spreading my arms wide open and you know, trying to greet her in this warm welcome. But as we first saw each other, she wasn't she wasn't getting along with that. She was like, all right, let's do a handshake. So she was more careful. She was, you could say, playing safe, but I understand. I get it. I mean, I'm just a dude on the internet. Who the fuck knows my motives or intentions and whatnot. So it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, it's better to keep the distance. It's healthy. Then we sat down and started talking. She had this red dyed hair and cat-like features of the face, very gentle and nice. And at some point I noticed that she was suppressing her smile, like she wanted to smile, but she was holding herself. And I was curious because I was telling a story, and I was like, why are you smiling? And she replied that as I was telling my story, in her head, she would finish my ideas and sentences faster than I do it in real life. And when I would, you know, divert and say something that she didn't expect to say, that would be like funny to her. So she would have like a little game in her head, and I thought that was funny too. I mean, I was smiling too. And the reason I was a bit slower than usual in expressing myself was that because we were speaking Ukrainian, and I'm more used to speaking Russian. And I mean, my Ukrainian it's not bad, it's decent. I mean, I have a degree in Ukrainian philology, so you could say I'm an atypical Crimean person, because you know, I can speak Ukrainian well is just for the lack of practice. It takes my brain longer to process and retrieve all that stored information, and naturally I could be a bit slower for that reason, but I'm still good. I'm all right. And since we started chatting, online in Ukrainian, it was just natural for us to carry it over in real life. So it was just a natural transition. She noticed that I kept deflecting and turning questions onto her when she would ask me something, and I tried to explain to her that this was my professional deformation. This is something that I don't do intentionally. That's just how I communicate, I guess. It's just I've been working as a teacher for so long, and as a teacher you cannot be the one who's like talkative or dominating the conversation. You have to give space and chance to your student to express themselves, because that's, they need practice, they need to work with the language directly, and you're there to set them up for that, to ask questions and to prop the conversation so they would feel safe and motivated to express themselves in non-native language. And I guess I carry it over to my real life, and I feel more comfortable asking questions rather than answering them, and listening as opposed to talking. And that didn't sit well with her, because I guess she wanted to find out a lot of things about me. And I mean, I wasn't being secretive. I was just, talking in my natural way, but I guess she wanted something more, and try to push myself and tell her more than I usually tell. I mean, not in the content-wise, just be more, I guess, active in terms of presenting information rather than receiving it. And she didn't like also when I get into a state of like being active and the flow of conversation is up to me, I kind of change subjects pretty fast, and she didn't like jumping from one subject to another like I enjoyed it. But yeah, so I guess I have a weird rhythm and flow in communicating with others. So throughout all our meeting, we would, exchange different stories and facts about ourselves. And we were walking in this park next to the waterfront, and there were lots of other people, like joggers and hikers and people walking their dogs. And at one point, we were walking, and there was a dude with his dog, approaching, at us, coming towards us. And she was by my side on the left, and I guess they were gonna collide with the dog. they're going opposite each other, and she just switched and she went from behind and ended up on my right side. And I couldn't just ignore that. I was like, what happened just now? And she just said, yeah, I guess the most obvious question would be, so why did you do that? Were you bit by a dog when you were a kid, or do you have some sort of traumatic experience with them? And she replied, she refuted all that. She said that not really, she just doesn't like dogs. And it's not even that she doesn't like dogs, she likes animals, but she just doesn't feel safe or comfortable around them. I thought that was crazy because, they're dogs. I've been bit by dogs a bunch of times, and I still want to squish every little dog's face when I see it because they're so cute and so nice. And I promised her that I would teach her how to love dogs through exposure therapy when I moved to Halifax. And then we sat by the water. I couldn't just, be by the ocean and not swim in it, so I took a liberty of dipping myself into the water and had a lot of fun. It was cold and maybe not the best idea because it was cold outside too. It was windy. It's by the water type of climate, and we were super cold and she was super cold, and we went back to her car and started getting warmer and waiting on a car to warm up as well. And we were doing this when we were warming our hands, and it was a funny ending to a lovely day spent together. And I thought how nice that we got along so well, and I really enjoyed getting to know her because she was a new person to me. She was interesting. She was from Lviv, and I asked her if she wanted to, if she misses home, if she wants to come back. And she actually said that she does miss Ukraine, and she really wants to go back. It's just that she actually saw Canada not as like a destination for her. It was like a temporary kind of residence, literally, according to our status. And she was not a typical immigrant of somebody who's coming and tries to hold on for dear life to get permanent residence or citizenship and to stay in this country. But she's more of a I'm just kind of a visitor because my homeland is on fire and I can't be safe there, so I have to be here. But it is what it is. And she was kind of the opposite of me, because I always wanted to get out of my country and see the world and travel to these Western lands and see how people live, because I spent all of my youth watching films and consuming all kinds of media from this place. I wanted to see it for myself with my own eyes, and I've always dreamt of being in the United States or Canada and somewhere, and having my life there, because I never liked my country. I never liked Ukraine. I never liked Russia, and I never liked this kind of life that I had there. So I always thought that once I get out, I would do better, which is not necessarily true, but there's some merit to that point. So we were a bit different, even though we spent a year as immigrants in a foreign country. We were on parallel, but at the same time different trajectories, because I'm looking to settle in. I'm looking to find a new home and start over, but she's in the waiting room, hoping that the war ends and she can go back and resume her life where she left off. And that's interesting. She tried to get to know me too. She tried to, pick my brain and understand where I was coming from. And she asked me about my trip to Canada, about, life before and after war, and my job and different activities that I did. And there's just so much to know. There's so much to cover when you meet a new person. And then one little detail, and we started talking about phones. Like she planned to go to bed early because she needed to wake up early because she wanted to go in line for the new release of the new iPhone. And she, after years of using Android phones, she eventually caved in and decided to try out an iPhone. And I had an iPhone too, and she asked me if I was happy with it, and I of course tried to sell it to her like it was the best thing, but because it was for me, and I don't know how it will be for her. But she asked me if I wanted to change my phone too, and I said no, I was good with mine, even though it's not the latest, but it was functioning perfectly. And moreover, I can't really change it because I got some banking apps that I can't remove, because if I exchange the phone, then they will be erased and I won't be able to download them again because they're not on App Store. And she asked me if those were like the Russian apps, and I said yeah, those were those. And I told her that I have Russian students and that I work with Russian people and they send me money for my services. And then she was not judgmental. It's just that the mood of the conversation just suddenly changed. Like she felt distant, and I don't know, it kind of bothered me. So I asked her, what's up, what's going on? And she, I asked her, did it bother you that much that I had, that I had ties with the Russian world? And of course she said that no, that it was all good. She tried to play it off, and she said that she was sad, and that she was sad not because I did those things or I had those things. She was sad because I was in the circumstances where I thought that those would be my viable options, that I was choosing that way instead of something else, and that's what made her sad. And yeah, she dropped me off at the bus station, and I took a bus to the airport, and then eventually went back to Montreal and carried on with my life in Montreal. But there was still this aftertaste of our meeting and our little interaction together. And maybe a few days later, I decided to text her back and just thank her for a wonderful trip, but she was a major part in, and for the time that she spent with me, and just in general, I was being very grateful. And I wanted also to clear the air about the last bit of our interaction, and I recorded like a long ass voice message trying to give her just a bit of my perspective and where I was coming from. And in that voice message, I said that I said that I know, I feel you, I got it. I know how you feel. I can imagine you. I see you being born, where you're born, in that part of our country, and growing up, your mom speaking Ukrainian to you, and everybody's speaking Ukrainian. This is your first tongue, and you're a Ukrainian citizen in your homeland, and you're, living your life. And then you find out maybe that somebody speaks Russian, and you get introduced to the other parts of our country and culture and history and stuff like that. And then one day you wake up and the other part, that country, is invading your country and is killing your people and destroys the cities, and just it takes everything away from you. And of course you would feel this way. Of course you hate the language because it is spoken by those who committed those crimes. Of course you hate Russian, for it reminds you of everything that was taken away from you, and the people who speak it are internally implicit in those crimes. So of course there's this hatred, but imagine that I was born in another part of the country and it wasn't done, with my consent or agreement or anything like that. It just happened. My mom, when she was younger, just decided to move from Siberia to Crimea during Soviet Union era. And then she had me and my brother, and that was that's how it came to be. And then I grew up speaking and hearing Russian, and that was my native tongue, and I learned Ukrainian and in school and spoke Ukrainian when necessary, but not at home or on the street. And I had a different perception of Russia as a country or as a culture. Obviously, I'm not giving a pass for any atrocities that were committed. But Russian was not, to me, the language of an enemy. That's the language that my mom spoke to me when I was a baby, and that's the language that her mom spoke to her when she was a baby, and so forth and so on, and we inherited it through generations. So can't just erase that. And it's crazy that I'm not being heard. That's the dividing factor between me and her. I guess what bothered me was that it wasn't personal, right? Because there we were, hanging out together and getting along, and then in one moment I went from a friend to being an enemy. Of course, she replied that she was not, condemning me or, seeing me as an enemy or anything like that. It's just that she wants to live and build her life according to her principles, and one of her principles was that she chooses people in her life based on this understanding that we have a common enemy and we must hate it, and we must fight with it. And if you're not on the same page, then we can't be really friends. And I thought that I wish I could do that. I wish I could just see black and white and be, I wish I had that clarity of perception of the world where there is no gray area and there is just black and white and it's clear as day, and I don't know, questions about it, but I can't pretend like there is this us versus them, all that kind of tribal shit. And I can't stop speaking Russian because it's the language that enemy uses. Like, I don't know why it is political. To me, language is just means. It's just a collection of sounds and symbols that people use to express themselves, to understand each other. And there's nothing inherently bad or evil about the language. And if I make that jump, if I accept that there is something inherently bad, that I can't use it, then I'll be making this jump where, you know, who am I after that? Баю, баюшки, баю, не ложися на краю. Придет серенький волчок и укусит за бочок. That's the kind of lullaby that my mom sang to me. It's in Russian. I think in today's world where everything is commodified and we consume the same content and we wear the same clothes and eat kind of the same food, it's tough to know who you, like, to know your identity, to know who you really are. It's just that, I mean, just take a look at, you know, the line that is formed by people in Louvre to see Mona Lisa. Is this what people really want to do, or is this what they're told to do, or they believe that would, you know, make them happy, that would fulfill their truest desires? I don't know. It's just, it feels like a lot of it is influence, and I really want to stay true to myself, and I don't want to give away my identity for an ideology, for something that's trendy or popular or something like that. I don't know. I'd much rather keep my moment, my experiences that I lived through my life, knowing that I lived through them and there was no recording of it, there was no, you know, replicating it. It was just my moments, like that moment when my mom would put me on a little pillow when I was a baby, and she was younger, and she would sing me songs, lullabies. And there would be that door to our apartment that I know so well.